talk show. This is Caitlin Brown and Brock Herrero coming at you live from the SSUSH1 talk.
So today we're going to be comparing and contrasting the development of English settlement and colonization during the 17th century. So the first topic we got today is, hold on.
Drink your coffee.
English settlement in Jamestown officially influenced the colonization of the Americas. What do you think about that?
I think it's the earliest European settlement on American soil as it took place in 1607.
Is that right?
That is right indeed.
Wow. Did you guys hear that? So, another thing, I did my research, Jamestown was apparently meant to make money for the English colonies and not just as like, let's go do this.
Really?
Yeah, really.
No, that's
Pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another thing we learned doing this is that not only did they do this, they go out on this adventure and move to a completely different continent, which is a really hard thing to do already. Jamestown thrived, and it proved to the Englishmen that not only was this like a cool thing to do, but like they ended up having a better economy and like a better life and a new start and everything. So like, really, who's winning now?
That's right.
That's not my business.
Another topic of the night is mercantilism is the main reason why England took advantage of the hard workers in the colonies. What are your thoughts on that?
So I just heard to the grapevine, that the English put heavy taxes on all the goods that they sent over to the colonies, and basically they took the resources that the colonists got, they made the colonists send them over to them, and then they sent them back and taxed them. So basically, like, they took the colonist stuff and sold it back to them so that they made money and the colonists didn't. So like, I don't know how we're supposed to, how that is like fair, but who knows?
Exactly, who knows?
So I heard that raw materials in England are used to produce manufactured goods and export them so that other countries could get them. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts? Just give me something,
I think it's a good, so we can also share goods around, and we are trading with others so we can get other goods from other countries to benefit our country.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Another topic that we learned from tonight is that England created a series of navigation acts to make sure there was trade agreements made with other colonies, but they made sure that the English economy benefited from these trades. What do you think about that?
So like basically I think what you're saying, what I'm getting from that is that, so they encouraged trade amongst the colonies, but they made sure that they got their percent, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, it's good for the colonies that they're interacting and trading, but England's really just playing them, you know what I'm saying? It's just not right, it's inhumane.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. But I think we should move on to our next topic.
Sounds good.
So, one thing that, moving on from England, but so one thing that I've kind of read into and discussed with a few people is, what if, was the transatlantic trade / triangular trade beneficial to the world, or like, what, was it bad or what? I don't understand. Could you go into that for me?
From what I've learned, the transatlantic trade introduced the concept of slavery to the Americas by taking African Americans from their homes and bringing them over to personal servants and field workers.
So like, they basically stole them from the homes and became slaves.
Yeah.
Really?
Made them work and they didn't get paid.
That's just terrible.
And we also learned that the trade brought upon arguably the most shamed time period in American history. A topic that is still debated in classroom today.
Like Mr. Tilson's classroom? That's my U.S. history teacher from junior year.
Oh yeah, probably, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe you can ask him, go back to your own high school.
That man's a trip, I don't really want to talk to him. So, although it was brutal, do you think it benefited the economy? Like, I understand that, like, it was bad, but in the long run, did it help it out, or what?
I think that the economy of America experienced a boost because the extra help allowed time to be conserved.
So, like, basically, although this was, like, done in a really awful way, like stealing people from their homes and stuff, it did benefit the colonies and just North America in general and got them off the ground.
Yeah, and before slavery, indentured servants were used to fulfill labor needs.
So like the differences between them and slaves is like indentured servants are temporary, right? Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, and then the transatlantic trade happened after that.
I just wish we could find a better way to get by that, you know?
I know. On to the next topic.
Alright, so moving on to development of the colonies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after we got all these slaves and stuff and indentured servants, we found out that all the southern colonies specifically had a big impact on, like all the colonies did, but like specifically the southern in this, we're just focusing on southern right now. They all had their individual impacts. In Virginia, they actually used tobacco as their main export.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Smokers.
Have you ever heard of the Act of Toleration in Maryland?
Maryland?
It's been a rough night, Maryland.
Why is it been a rough night? Actually, we don't need to talk about this on camera. I've not. Could you explain it to me?
The Act of Toleration of Maryland was caused by the Catholic uprising, and the act allowed freedom of religion amongst Christians and Protestants and also Catholics too.
Wow. Protestants and Catholics are Christians, so that would make sense.
Okay.
Okay, so
Let me see that again. The octave.
it's not. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so another, like this, I know you've heard of North and South Carolina, but at one point they were merged, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Carolina colonies started off as one state, obviously, because I just said that. But they decided that it wasn't going to work out because it was too much land to cover, and there wasn't like enough strong leaders to govern it.
Mm-hmm.
So they split into northern and southern Carolina. And later the names were shortened to North and South, and that's still how it is today. So like, if they had never realized that like that state was too big, that it would still probably be Carolina today. Moving on from Carolina, personally my favorite colony, Georgia, because I lived there. They had this leader named James Oglethorpe. You've probably heard of him. He made Savannah, and he started the colony, and he was the leader and stuff. And yeah, people of Georgia. So this James guy, he had really strict rules, and people of Georgia were not having it. They threw uprisings, and eventually they got what they wanted, and that led to local legislative participation and a greater autonomy amongst the community of the people, and that spread out to the other states, and we still have like a sense of that today.
So moving on from southern colonies, let's talk about the New England colonies. So the New England colonies were plagued with bad soil in a short growing season, so they had to find a way to produce for the nation. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I heard personally the formation of the New England colonies is a result of the internal feuds of the Anglican Church and between the separatist Puritans, and those are the people who wanted to stray from the king's influence, hence the word separatist, my bad, I'm sorry. And the non-separatist Puritans who wanted to try to make the Anglican Church as Protestant as possible. This separated the church into two colonies. You had Plymouth and Massachusetts Bay. And eventually they realized that these two colonies were too weak to stand alone, so they came together to form Massachusetts. And basically, this was the start of, they had obviously a freedom of religion in the state.
Wow.
And this was the start of it amongst all the states. And
What about Rhode Island?
Rhode Island? They didn't really have any religious conflict, but they did have a political conflict where they overthrew the royal governor because they wanted to stray from the ways of the monarchy and just be different, you know what I'm saying?
In Connecticut?
Connecticut, dang, that one's crazy.
Really?
Connecticut made arguably the biggest contribution to future United States. They drafted the first written constitution, actually.
Wow.
And that was called the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, and they wrote that in 1639. It was a huge step towards a new civilization. It was great, actually. I know it word for word.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want you to tell me just a little snippet about New Hampshire, just anything.
Alright, New Hampshire was the most religiously diverse of the New English colonies.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty big stuff right there.
Too bad it's the smallest state in the country. Huh.
Oof. Alright, moving on.
Okay, so moving on to the mid-Atlantic colonies. These colonies, I'm sure you've heard of them, they are known for their harbors and river trading systems. But we're going to focus more on the other aspects that they covered. First, I'm going to go ahead and say New York did have the Hudson River, which was probably one of the biggest contributions the colonies made to the economy of their new country that they're forming. So moving on from that, another thing about New York is that they also they created I don't know if you've heard of this, but a freedom of language. This was a huge step towards just a big, a diversity amongst people in the colonies. What can you tell me about New Jersey, though?
New Jersey was not that big of a contribution, and it only exists because the Duke of York thought that the colony of New York was too big, so he gave it to other noblemen.
Well, that's sad.
I know.
But they're still close to the Hudson River.
That's true.
That's good.
What do you know about Pennsylvania?
So Pennsylvania actually had the most diverse culture.
Really? I thought it would be New York.
No, it's actually Pennsylvania. Yeah, the Quakers were adamant that religious toleration and fair treatment of the Native Americans was the #1 priority in that colony. So they made it that, and that made it very, very diverse, and that probably had the biggest impact, culturally, than any other colony. So we got all those, and then finally the last colony is Delaware. Delaware was owned by many different countries before they were finally sold to England, but they actually separated from the colonies before the war. Obviously, we don't need to talk about it. It was bad.
Really?
Yeah, it was bad. Were you there?
No, I wasn't.
I was. Remember the guy who rode the horse and was screaming, "They're coming" and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that
I
was my
didn't make
brother.
it. I was late.
That was my brother. Yeah,
Wow.
that was a mistake. He's a lot older than me. But, yeah, they governed through legislative assembly in Delaware. But yeah, that's it. And that's really all we got today. So that's it for our show. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thanks for watching.
I'm Brock.
I'm Caitlin.
And this is Good Night, Marietta.